Hello everyone, to a pseudo Let's Play thing, but I'm not really going to number it as such because this is not a progression video. The reason I'm making this video is because I've been leveling a lot of my alt classes, or jobs if you prefer, and I feel like playing my warrior. But since I have real life obligations here where I can't really do a full dungeon run, at least not without disrespecting my fellow players by leaving early or some such, we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be going in undersized. I contemplated doing Braveflox as long stop, but because Braveflox's long stop second boss gives me the heebie-jeebies with that bubble, which I think you can pop your own bubble, but I mean, stuff in Braveflox hits so hard, it's not really viable as a, say, as a level 45 to solo. It might be. I haven't really tried it. But what I will say is, going back and doing unsynced runs, if you've never played a tank class before, you can, if you played a tank class and leveled doing these, you can pretty much ignore this whole video. But for those who've never really tanked, this is a great video for you, because I'm going to teach you as a warrior when and how to pop your cooldowns, or when ideally you should pop your cooldowns. It's hard to time it properly if you're not familiar with the fight in extensive detail. That's more along the first or second boss's thing, though I'll be going into a little bit here. And that would be here. We're at the first boss, and I'm going to show you how tanking works, because if I just cleared the trash, you just see me doing a bunch of DPS rotations, you wouldn't really learn much. I'm going to turn on Defiance and actually show you how you want to go about tanking as a warrior. Now, if you're soloing, generally speaking, you don't really want Defiance on because it does a 25% hit to your DPS or your damage output. But you do gain access to Inner Beast, Unchained, I believe Steel Cyclone, and I don't remember what else you get later. But the way this whole thing works, every time you use a comboed, I think Skull Sunder, Butcher's Block, Maim, or Storm's Eye, I think you get a Wrath, which I believe Wrath gets you 2% parry per stack, and once you reach 5 stacks, you can use it on Inner Beast, any of those 3 things I just mentioned before. Now, the way you want to do this is you want to learn when the boss does their big attack. For example, when she did that big wave attack, that's when you want to use Inner Beast. Or if you just want to sit in it, use it there, but I won't recommend sitting in Stupid personally. And remember, rotate your cooldowns. Don't just pop them all at once. You want that healer, provided you're actually getting healed, unlike this, you want your healer to, you know, be able to do some damage. Even if you are a warrior, having your healer do damage always makes the run a little bit faster than if you were to just sit in non-defiance. Okay, so, generally speaking, if you're a paladin, it's a lot easier to mitigate like that. I should have had Inner Beast up if I was at the level appropriate thing, because I would have mitigated a lot of it. Which, that is hard to do, because you don't really know when things are going to use what they're going to use, unless you're very, very familiar with the fight. For example, I just wasted Inner Beast. Nothing really hit me during that interval, but I used it. But the good thing about Inner Beast is it's such a low cooldown. If you have Infuriate at level 50, you can basically Inner Beast twice every minute. Now, I'm not saying you want to always use Inner Beast. Sometimes you're going to use Steel Cyclone for the AoE threat. Sometimes you're going to want to use it on Unchained if you're on like the beginning of a pull. Because, you know, throwing out Infuriate, Unchained, Overpower, pretty good way to get solid threat. Because that 25% reduction in Defiance really hurts your threat generation. Now, it's situational what you want to use when. I can't really tell you when. That's all a matter of just figuring out what you want to do. And just coming out with your own style. Whether you want to try and be a foot like that. That was perfect right there with the Inner Beast. I don't know how I timed that, but that's what you want to do essentially. Time your Inner Beast for their big hits. Because you're not a paladin. You don't have a 15 second of 20% less damage. You have, what, 4 seconds of 20% less damage with Inner Beast? You gotta time that crap. Or use Vengeance, which I think is probably on a very long cooldown. I've not got the skill yet, but I'm imagining it's a pretty long cooldown. And that's as far as I got as far as tanking goes. I will show you a few trash pulls just to show you how I do trash pulls. I'm not really the best, but I always keep everything on me, so... And I don't die, unless the healer just does not heal, and then I'll die, but... I think that really goes of any tank player, really. What do I know? But yeah, you see how tanking generally works? Like I said, for every stack of Wrath, I think you gain 2% parry, but that's trash. You do not, generally speaking, want to just sit on 5 stacks of Wrath. You want to use that. Another good bonus of doing undersized parties is you do get loot. You don't get loot from the mobs, you get loot from the chests, and... No, I think it's pretty much just loot from the chests. So, I'm also going to show you a... I think I already showed that shortcut before, didn't I? Oh yeah, I didn't pull that for some reason. Anyway, we're going to skip forward here. One of the trash pulls I told you about, I was just going to show you how I would do the whole thing. Just... Basically, you just want to make sure you get all of them in your overpower, and then go on your rotation. Usually you might want to overpower twice, depending on how good your group's AoEing. If they're not AoEing, you don't really have to overpower more than probably twice in the whole pull. After that, really you just want to go with Butcher's Block combo, and then when you know you have a solid aggro lead, maybe you throw another overpower out. When you know you have a pretty solid aggro lead on everything else, that's when you start throwing up Maim and Storm's Eye if the dungeon's applicable. Normally, Storm's Eye will not be available in Hawk Manor, obviously, but the theory is really the same. You want to throw up Maim whenever it's safe to do so, but remember, do not just start your aggro thing with Maim. It's really, really tempting, because that extra 20% damage means extra 20%... Actually, no. I don't want to spread misinformation. I don't know if it's 20% more threat, but obviously it's more threat, because you're doing more damage with the enmity multiplier, Butcher's Block, if I can speak properly here, it's still added. But you want to make sure you're not going to lose aggro on everything else in the process. Kind of obvious, really. Another good thing if you're going to pull these maidservants is usually you want to make sure that you have plenty of room to not have to worry about patrols. Undersized party, basically soloing dungeons, is a really, really good way if you're not confident in your abilities as pulling as a tank. You want to be able to know what patrols where and when you want to pull. If you want to min-max as a tank and get good, meaning, you know, go into Duty Finder and just make the whole thing really, really quick, you can do this to practice. You don't have to do it as practice. You just go in there, seriously, if you want to. No one's going to yell at you for being a... Well, I don't want to lie. No one's going to yell at you for being a tank. But you're probably going to get yelled at as a tank. I know I have. This is really it. You want to run through them, so the backs are to your party members. Do your two things, and then basically just pop your defensive cooldowns. And really just... I mean, at this point, it's probably on, you know, autopilot of sorts. I mean, at this point, you will not lose aggro unless you just stop doing anything, or people's hitting like 3 different targets, then maybe you might want to hit overpower a couple more times. But generally speaking, if you overuse overpower, well, you're not going to have very much TP left. We don't have Invigorate, we don't have Equilibrium until, what, level 58? So you're not going to be getting that for a while. Make sure you don't spam overpower is the bullet point I'm trying to get across here. It's really tempting because it has a 5 times multiplier on enmity, I think. But that 130 TP per cast really, really hurts. Especially when warriors are TP limited anyway. You probably better be served by using your Butcher's Block combo after the first 2 overpowers. The way I would do it out of the pull would be 2 overpowers, a Butcher's Block combo, and then a Maim combo, provided everybody's hitting the one thing. The reason is because Butcher's Block and all that overpower is hopefully going to keep that enmity on you. It should, unless somebody's just baller DPS. In which case, maybe not, but if someone's that good, you don't really need the Maim at that point because they're that good of a DPS. Now, this is just me just going, why did I never do this? Because I notice sometimes I forget to put my cooldown, I forget to use my cooldowns off of cooldown, so forgive me, there's a little bit of maintenance, you know. Because it's nice to know when things are off cooldown, because you don't always look all the way down there to check. This is a hint I would advise any player to make right here, so you don't forget to use your abilities when they're off cooldown, if they're supposed to be meant that way. Also makes it a lot easier to know when, you know, you have to use your cooldown, or when you can use your cooldowns. Okay, we're gonna skip forward again here. Yeah, skip forward again here, because this is more trash pulls and all that fun stuff, which I'm sure people want to know how you do trash pulls, but we've already seen enough of them at this point, so let's skip ahead again. Now we're skipping forward to the final boss, because this one's going to be the lesson of just how do you really mitigate in just plain you cannot die. Say your healers died. This is a great fight, solo, to teach you how to stay alive using your own fortitude. If you start relying on the healer, well, if the healer dies, then oh boy. Okay, so first off, very generic tanking tip for this thing. Put her on focus target. When she starts using Void Thunder 3 or Void Fire 3, run behind her. Notice how she didn't do that one attack. And I took, like, no damage. Now, I messed up, because, oh wait, no, that's Fire 1. This will save your healer, again, a lot of work to keeping your butt alive. You don't want the healer working. You want the healer, well, you don't want the healer being lazy, but you get what I'm hopefully saying here. Now, the hard part in this fight, if you're going to solo it, comes at about, what, 60%, 50%, somewhere around here. You start noticing a bunch of explosions, and that's because I'm not doing mechanics, because I can't really do the mechanics. This is normally what you have people going around, you know, hitting the vases for, so that doesn't happen. Or at least only one happens. But since I don't have the ability to do that, I have to just plain self-heal and sustain through all this. Now you can try and just burn the boss down, I've tried it, it nearly got me killed. But you can do it that way. I don't recommend doing it that way, I'd recommend just burning the ads as they come up. But this is really a lesson in what cooldowns do you pop when. I'm not sure why that hit me, I guess that's an AoE thing I didn't take into account for, but yeah, the ads here really teach you how to just not die. Now, if you use your Bloodbath by itself, it's okay. Normally you want to pair up Bloodbath with either Foresight or Berserk, I think it is. Oh crap, what's that cooldown? Hopefully you know what I'm talking about here, but you want to pair your cooldowns if they're weak, and if they're not weak, you don't use any other ones. The reason is, for example, on a Paladin, if I use frickin' Rampart and Sentinel together, the layman would probably think I get 60% damage reduction. That's not the way it works. I believe it's multiplicative, isn't it? I just screwed the word over, but I'm pretty sure it's not additive. I'm pretty sure it's multiplicative. How do you even say that word? It doesn't matter, but the point here is it doesn't work like that. So you want to pop the big cooldowns by themselves. You pop the little cooldowns like Foresight, which doesn't sound like a small buff, but it is. I screwed up here because I just ate that to the face. Yes, you want to use the small ones like Foresight and Bloodbath, because Foresight is only 20% defense. Now, when you're level 60, it's a pretty decent cooldown, but when you're like level 28 like this duty is, it's not that good. Like, your defense at this point is like, what, 200 defense, if that, so you'll get, what, 40 defense? It's not really that good. But you place it with a self-heal, and your healer, they don't hate their life anymore. And that's just the beginning of tanking as a warrior. I didn't really go into every single little thing, you know, but hey, I got a card out of it, sweet. And that's going to be it for today, guys. Like I said, I'm not in a big hurry to clear the game, to clear the expansion, but I do want to get there. And hopefully you join me on all of my little antics and my hunt for glamour, because that's a pretty nice looking bow if I do say so. I like the way that looks, so I'm glad I did this, if nothing else. And that's going to be it for today. Next time, I have no idea. I mean, really, honestly, probably going to be Snowcloak. I keep saying that, but darn it, I wanted to play my warrior today. So I did. But thank you guys very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this in some way, shape, or form, or you learned something about that fight you didn't know before, or you learned something about warrior tanking that you didn't. And hopefully I shall see you guys next time. Farewell, everyone, until next time.